Hey everyone, how are you? And it's a wonderful Thursday evening for you. I hope that it is, be it for some of you starting school, some of you not starting school, some of you in the middle of vacation, some of you having work. Just hopefully you guys are doing well. I'll send you all my salutations and hopefully everything is going well on your end. Oh, where do we begin? Well, yeah, let's begin with Colombia and with Venezuela. This is always a weird type of rivalry. I guess we can call it that. It checks all the boxes. And it's a case of one team on one end understanding what they need to do defensively, while another one seemed to be a bit, at times, underestimating the opposition. And I saw that a lot with Colombia, especially in some aspects of play. Colombia played more. They were overall, I guess you can say, they were the better team throughout 90 minutes. Although you can start looking at certain points in the match where that balance started tilting in the opposite direction and Venezuela started to complicate them. But obviously, when you have a team playing a 5-4-1 with four midfielders that are all holding midfielders, you don't have players that are number 10s or attacking midfielders or wingers or anything of that sort. You have four holding midfielders on top of having five defenders in the back. It's going to be difficult to get through them. But also on their end, it was difficult to break out because a lot of times you started to see this Venezuelan side go on the breakouts and it was an errant pass, a pass that was too far, a pass that was too short. Runs that were being made that usually weren't, the most precise. You start seeing Brujo, of course, many of those of you who follow the Philadelphia Union in the United States are pretty familiar with him. He did an adequate job in a position that he's not accustomed to. So, yeah, I mean, you have to give him praise for it. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's a Venezuela side that does not have their main players. I mean, when Angel Herrera is coming on, it was just, people were just cheering and it seemed like, oh my God, this is it. We might have a chance here. Him, okay? I mean, I'm saying, I'm not saying that Herrera is a world beater. I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm not saying that he's good. It's just that it just seemed at least a light of hope for a team that still many players have. I think it was something like 4 or 5 players on this national team have 3 caps or less. Okay. When you start to look at players like La Mantilla, who in the match against Brazil had come in the night before to join the national team, he started the following day. Not even one practice he had, and he was already a starter. So for Jose Peseiro, it's a great deal of work that he's been able to do with very little pieces. So you have to give him some type of credit. Not how some of the Venezuelan press are making him sound like it's heroic. And I'm like, wait a second. Heroic losing 3-0 is not heroic. It's doing what you can with what you did. Okay? Today, it was a little bit more of that, although they attacked a little bit more. Not too much, but a little bit more. And they were able to take the ball away from Colombia in the last 30 minutes, especially when Edwin Cardona came off the pitch. That was one of the big changes in the match. And the subs really didn't do too much. But again, everyone has to, and I don't blame them in the least bit, talk about Wilker Fariñez. I've raved about him, when he was with the Venezuelan under-20s. He was part of that Venezuelan under-20s alongside Jefferson Soteldo that ended up going to the finals of the under-20 World Cup before losing to England. That goal by Dominic Calvert-Lewin that ended up giving England the World Cup in, I think it was 2017. Fariñez, despite being very undersized for European football, still doing a great, still riding the bench over in France. But what he did today was just spectacular. It was probably one of his best performances ever. And to be quite honest with you, it's been one of those great types of individual performances that really he stood on his head and he knocked everything out. I mean, he made some incredible saves, especially one on Mateus Uribe, where Uribe ends up, bicycle kick and he just tips it right over the bar. There was another one by Borja where he also does, an acrobatic type of finish, but Fariñez is there covering the first post and also in a very acrobatic manner being able to prevent that ball from going through. So a lot of credit to Venezuela on this one, but also Colombia lacked attitude at times. They should have gone a little bit more aggressive. They needed to find that difference, and they weren't able to do it. They just were not able to do it. And Brazil, it's like a Ferrari running the Tour de France. It's just that type of a difference in terms of seeing Brazil and seeing everybody else. To me, Brazil is the best team in all of America, from Alaska to Patagonia. The best team, bar none. There's nobody equaling Brazil right now. I know some in the U.S. will start getting mad, but no team is better than Brazil right now in this part of the world. Brazil is showing why they are going to be contenders to win the World Cup. Will they win it? That's another issue. That's another topic we can get into later on. But contend, they're going to contend. They're obligated to contend. They understand that they have to go and contend in Qatar. And they have a mission of winning. They have a mission of qualifying. And they also have a mission of going to Qatar and possibly winning it there again for a sixth time. That hexa is still kind of up in the air. So when you start looking at Brazil, it seems like they're playing this tournament in second gear. And whenever they feel like it, they put it into third, and all of a sudden that's when you start seeing the difference. It's that third gear. It's that bit of flavor that you're starting to see with Brazil. And again, Chichi is doing a good job of handling the situation, juggling all the drama and all of the chaos and everything else that's surrounding the CBF outside of what's going on the pitch. I mean, if you look at Brazil, how they play on the pitch, you wouldn't know all the other things that they're dealing with extracurricularly. Neymar had probably one of the best performances he's had with Brazil against this Peru side that just absolutely got dismantled. Yeah, they had a couple of opportunities. Now, if those opportunities would have gone in, we might be singing a different tune. But, if it's, as they say, as if it's in cans or, pots and pans, the world would be a kitchen, right? So if we look at it from that perspective, I mean, Brazil, we start seeing Neymar, of course, is the keystone. He's the central figure of this Brazil side. As he goes, so do them. As Casemiro or some of the players in the midfield, of course, the holding midfield especially, go, so do Brazil. But we start to see all their lines being solid, everyone being deep in their respective positions. Neymar, of course, doing what Neymar does best. And Everton Ribeiro also coming into the fray. You see Alexandro also coming in and scoring. I mean, so it's not just Neymar alone, but it's a collective effort where the individual pieces shine individually, but collectively they shine even more. So we started to see that against a Peru side that, they looked confident. They knew that they had to play a perfect game. They didn't. They knew they had to execute it the best possible way. They didn't. And they knew that they had to mark hard in the middle against a Brazil side that if you don't do that, they're going to tear you to bits. They didn't. So you start looking at it from all of these different angles and you start seeing what Peru didn't do and what Peru should have done and what Peru actually did. And it was bound to be 4-0, maybe more. But overall, Brazil showing that they're the foam in the creme de la creme, if you want to look at it. That's a big difference. I mean, there was a great tweet that came out and said, yeah, Argentina and Uruguay are relatively close. I said, yeah, geographically. That's about as close as they are right now from a football standpoint. Now, can things happen? Yeah, it's football at the end of the day. And I mentioned it before. A team like Paraguay can give them a hard time. A team like Argentina can give them a hard time on the right day. Uruguay, on the right day, can also give them a hard time. But we have to find out if that day does come. That's the most important thing. And so far, in World Cup qualifying play, Brazil hasn't lost in 5 years. In Copa America, they continue establishing superiority even more so. And that's probably the most telling thing of it all. That regardless if it's a long marathon or a short sprint, Brazil is still number one by a lot. And finally, I have my question segment, and one question that I'll look at specifically today comes from Perfect Tommy 26. Thank you for sending me the question. Can Ecuador make some noise in this tournament leading up to the World Cup? I believe so. Well, actually, they have. Maybe not in the last couple of rounds, but they have the potential to do it. They have the young players. They have some interesting individuals in Angel Mena. You do have an Ener Valencia that leads the pack. As far as goalkeepers are concerned, maybe that's one of the big problems. I would like to see Martinez over Alexander Dominguez now more than anything else. And that would probably end up being one of the big things as far as this particular Ecuadorian side is concerned. Keep in mind, of course, Gustavo Alfaro still needs more matches under his belt as national team coach, although the work that he's been able to do and the points that he's been able to get have been quite important in order to put them in a position where they can get close to that. I think 25 points, 26 points should put them at least in the conversation to get into Qatar. They're almost a third of the way there. But you have to see how the youngsters respond, especially coming into the month of September. And this is why Copa America is so important right now for these teams to be able to gain that momentum going into World Cup qualifying play. So when you start looking at this Ecuadorian side, as I mentioned, you have the Ayrton Preciados. I want to see more of Moises Caicedo, who actually has not had a lot of action in recent rounds. So for me, those types of players are the ones that end up making the difference. You might end up seeing William Pacho eventually come into the fray. Now, how long will it happen? How long will it take for a player like that to come through? Well, that's going to be a different story. I don't know. Ecuador do have one factor in their favor, especially when they start looking at how they end up playing. Of course, Copa America ends. Now, if I was start looking towards the month of September, they have two very difficult matches, and I think that that's very pivotal for them in the next few weeks. They play, actually, in the next few months, I should say, since we're in June and I'm talking about September. They play at home against Paraguay, and then they go to Uruguay just a few days after that. So when you have those types of factors, I think that's very important to look at in terms of what this side can do. I mean, if you look at how they played against Brazil, yeah, they stayed in it. They were pretty good, and it wasn't until Brazil started to really carburate and they got a couple of calls in their favor, then that's when Brazil really started taking over. Against Peru, they were just outworked, and that's exactly what happened against Colombia. They just weren't able to create much offense, and Colombia was able to drop back, and they felt comfortable in a defensive position. So that's, again, the big problem. When teams feel comfortable with Ecuador and they feel comfortable dropping back and reducing spaces, how do they react then? And that's going to be one of the big issues for a coach like Gustavo Alfaro, who historically has been known as a very defensive and conservative coach. How is he going to loosen the reins? And when he's done that a couple of times, it's been successful. 6-1 against Colombia and then 2-1 against Bolivia. You know, if you look at one of the friendlies that they had, and before that, of course, being able to beat Bolivia away in La Paz, being able to beat Uruguay 4-2. So again, you see that they did have some success. And of course, that Argentina match where they lost 1-0, maybe that result might have been a little bit different with a couple of opportunities that they could have been able to take advantage. And again, the offense is going to be the most telling aspect of this team. I hope I answer the question as best as possible. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, make sure you leave them on social media. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you during this Copa America and beyond. I have some other things that I want to start working on, especially post Copa America, but make sure that you're always following. Make sure that you're checking out this podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube. Make sure you check it out on whatever platform you consume your content. All right, so it'll be until tomorrow, and I will talk to you again. Ciao.